During the funeral, the raven perched on the girl's coffin. Then something unbelievable happened. Kelly was a bright and beautiful young girl who grew up in a loving home. One day, her father gave her an unusual gift, a small raven chick, hoping it would teach her responsibility and the joy of caring for another life. Tragically, Kelly passed away unexpectedly for unknown reasons. At her funeral, the raven perched solemnly on her coffin. Then, in that heartbreaking moment, something unbelievable and miraculous happened. Though only 6 years old, Kelly was strong, beautiful, and independent. She loved spending time in the garden, observing the plants and the insects that danced upon them. She would run, jump, and play among the trees, climbing fearlessly, scraping her knees and tearing her clothes without care. None of that mattered to her as long as she was having fun. She also loved watching fish glide through the streams and birds soar overhead. Growing up in a small, quiet village in Cornwall, UK, life was peaceful and unhurried. Her mother stayed home to care for the house and her daughter, while her father, a sailor, often spent weeks or even months away at sea. Kelly missed her father dearly when he was away, but she always looked forward to his return. Not only did she cherish their time together, but she also adored the strange, unique, and wonderful gifts he brought back. Over the years, he had gifted her seashells from Caribbean shores, intricate sculptures from distant Middle Eastern lands, and books and toys from across Europe and America. She loved all of her gifts and enjoyed showing them off to her friends as she regaled them with stories about how her father would sail the seas and travel the world. Kelly waited eagerly at the garden gate, waiting for her father to walk down the street. He had been away for 2 months this time, and he was due home at any moment. All of a sudden, she saw him slowly walking down the street. Kelly yelled with joy and ran towards him, throwing herself into his arms. She hugged him tightly and planted a big kiss on his cheek. But she noticed something. There was no gift. He would usually hand a gift-wrapped item to her straight away, but there was none to be seen. That's when he knelt down and placed something in her hand. She jumped a little as she felt it twitch in her palm and looked down to see a tiny baby bird. Her father told her that it was a small raven, no older than a week or 2. He asked her to protect and look after it as if it were a real human baby. Kelly was confused, but her face lit up when she realized the big responsibility she had on her shoulders. Over the next few weeks, Kelly spent all of her time with the raven. She fed it, gave it water to drink, and even taught it a few tricks. Ravens are very clever birds, and hers quickly picked up what the little girl was trying to teach it. The chick also started to grow, and over the weeks, it learned how to fly. Kelly would take it outside and watch it roam in the sky with adoration. It could easily fly away and never return, but it always found its way back to Kelly. It was clear that the girl and the bird had quite a strong connection, but one day, tragedy struck. While out in the garden, lying under the big tree, Kelly suddenly stopped breathing and clutched at her throat. The raven started loudly squawking, and within minutes, Kelly's parents came to the window to see what all the fuss was about. Seeing their daughter writhing around on the ground, they ran outside and scooped her up. Paying the raven no mind, they bundled the poor girl into the car and rushed her to the nearby hospital. The raven sat in the tree and watched the car disappear down the street before swooping in through an open window and perching itself on Kelly's bed. Arriving at the hospital, doctors quickly started to check Kelly's lungs. A girl so young and healthy shouldn't have any breathing issues, so it was important that they did scans on her lungs to make sure there were no issues and figure out what the problem was. It was also important to start her breathing again, as a lack of oxygen could cause some serious and irreparable damage. All the while, her parents watched on with tears in their eyes. Despite the doctor's best efforts, unfortunately, Kelly was declared dead. When they called the time of death, outside the window of a hospital room was the raven. He kept pecking at the glass and loudly squawking, but the staff kept shooing it away. A hospital was no place for a bird like that. It could not be allowed in, even if it was a pet. As Kelly's distraught parents drove home, the raven pecked at their car as well, again making a lot of noise. Too stricken by grief, they ignored it. Once they arrived home and began making funeral preparations, the raven kept trying to get their attention, but they had no time for it. The day of Kelly's funeral came soon. Her parents, family, and friends all wept as they mourned the little girl lying still in her small coffin. The lid was open to allow people to say their goodbyes. She looked so frail and innocent in her coffin, as if she were some kind of precious porcelain doll. No one could quite believe that she was gone, and the grief in the room was palpable. Many people cried as they walked past Kelly, stroking her face and kissing her cheek. But there was one attendant at the funeral that many people had not expected to see. The raven was sitting in a nearby tree, watching over the proceedings. Every now and then, he would fly up and circle the gathered people, making a loud cawing noise. Kelly's parents held their breath as it finally swooped down and perched on the coffin, curiously looking at his friend's body. Suddenly, the bird started to make a strange, buzzing, cooing noise as if it was asking a question. It hopped to and fro, from the lid to the side of the coffin and then back again. After a few minutes, the bird started pecking at Kelly's body as if it were trying to wake her up. Her parents were moved to see such a sight, and while they recognized that the raven must have been feeling his own form of grief, they knew it couldn't stay there pecking at the girl. They tried shouting at it, but it wouldn't budge and even started pecking at her mouth. That behavior looked disgraceful to the family, but it was hiding a secret motive everybody was about to discover. As the father approached the open casket, he flailed his arms in the air to shoo the bird. It flapped and squawked, but reluctantly took off and flew up to a nearby tree, looking down intently. All eyes followed the raven as it made the short journey. But when their attention shifted back to the coffin, they froze in shock. Kelly was sitting up. Resting on her lap was a walnut-sized egg, one that had come from an insect. It had fallen from the tree she had been lying under in the garden, unknowingly lodging itself in her throat, where it grew and multiplied. When Kelly was rushed to the hospital, doctors initially suspected a problem with her lungs. They performed a chest X-ray, which revealed nothing abnormal. However, what they failed to examine was her throat. The lack of oxygen had sent her into a coma, leading to the devastating mistake she was wrongly pronounced dead. Though her breaths were slow and shallow, Kelly was alive. Her parents, overwhelmed with emotion, threw themselves at her, hugging and kissing their daughter in disbelief. It was then they realized the truth the raven had known all along. It had desperately tried to communicate with them, but they hadn't understood. The bird pecking at Kelly's face and mouth hadn't been an attack, but a frantic attempt to remove the blockage itself. Miraculously, its actions had given Kelly just enough time to survive. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.